Hey, welcome to Starbound. I'm Daniel Pierce, and I'm going to be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories. That's including Sunspire Academy and Frarian and Rimiki. If you would like to unlock early access and support our new episodes and series, tap join below and become a Starbound member today. Now, let's get into today's story. The planet was called Helsar. It was the latest biological nightmare discovered by the Galactic Council's star scouting team, and the newest terrifying puzzle for lead scientist Higgett to solve. The orbital scan had just finished, and his assistants were insisting that some insane, self-aware species was actively hunting down there. Higgett had no idea that today he would experience firsthand what the surface of a death world was truly like, and learn why that one reckless species called humans enjoyed hunting there. The bridge of the scientific vessel Calamity Seeker was quiet, its pristine white walls curved in organic shapes that offered both structural integrity and psychological comfort. As the first Latarian ship exclusively designed to conduct searches in death worlds, every surface was reinforced with triple-layered ceramide plating, every system backed up 3 times over, and the atmosphere recyclers could filter out toxins that would kill most galactic citizens in seconds. "We are sure they are humans, boss. There is no doubt the ship in the acid swamps below us belongs to them." Lonat's voice was soft. Like all Latarians, Lonat stood barely chest-high to most galactic species. His blue skin, an atypical color for a life form, his orange hair, more like fine filaments than the coarse strands humans possessed, was tied back in the traditional Latarian knot, and his 4-fingered hands gripped a data pad with more strength than needed. Despite their small stature and delicate appearance, Latarians shared a basic bipedal shape that wasn't that different from that of the humans they were talking about. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head with sensory organs clustered at the top. Higgett raised an orange eyebrow. His skepticism immediately began searching for a more reasonable explanation. "A human ship, perhaps," he conceded, his gaze landing on Lonat. "But that doesn't mean humans themselves are present. This vessel could be a drone, remotely operated from a safe distance. Even humans, reckless as they are, surely wouldn't physically venture onto a Class SS death world. The atmospheric composition alone would require constant suit integrity. One breach, and they'd be dissolved in minutes." The rest of the research team had been listening from their stations, and now they moved with the synchronized defiance of scientists who had worked together for years. Lonat led the approach, with Kriad and Amat flanking him, each raising their data pads with screens facing Higgett in a tight formation that spoke of their desire to prove their boss wrong. Kriad, with her orange hair styled in elaborate braids, held up her pad steady despite the tremor in her hands. The optical footage she displayed showed crystal-clear images captured by their long-range sensors. 3 humans without protective suits moving through a fungal forest where each mushroom cap dripped acid capable of eating through the skin of their own species. The humans weren't fleeing or hiding. They were stalking something, weapons raised, moving with the smoothness of experienced hunters. One human held up a closed fist, and the others immediately froze, demonstrating a level of teamwork typical of a team with extensive practice in such environments. Emmett, the team's youngest member but their most gifted technician, presented his data at the same time. His screen showed cascading waterfalls of signal intercepts, radio communications between human teams scattered across the planet's surface. The tech signatures were unmistakable. Short-range encrypted bursts designed to penetrate the planet's dense vegetation. Emergency beacons on standby, vital sign monitors transmitting real-time biological data. 20 distinct communication nodes, sir, Emmett reported. All active, all mobile, all definitely originating from human pattern equipment. Lonat himself held the most damning evidence. His pad displayed transcriptions of intercepted communications, the human language translated into neat Laterian script. Alpha Team, we got fresh tracks. Looks like a mature Hellsar Ravager, maybe 8 tons. Beth, you and Mike circle wide. We'll drive it toward the canyon. Another transmission. Base camp, this is Hunter 1. We bagged the specimen, requesting an extraction at coordinates 97 Alpha. And tell the doc to prep the lab. This one's organs are still alive somehow. Might be valuable. And perhaps, most tellingly, weather's getting rough. Acid rain in 2 hours. All teams finish up and get to shelter. Remember, don't be afraid to be called a pussy and wear your protective suits. Higgett stared at the evidence, his highly developed brain struggling to process what his eyes were seeing. Throughout his career, he had studied dozens of species, cataloged their behaviors, understood their motivations. But this defied everything he knew about intelligent life. Why would any sapient species willingly subject themselves to such a hostile environment? The humans weren't here by accident, weren't refugees or prisoners. They had come here deliberately, equipped specifically for hunting in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens in seconds. His mind raced through possibilities. Religious obligation? Resource scarcity? Population pressure? But none of these explanations fit the most casual enthusiasm evident in their communications. The bridge fell silent as Higgett processed the information, his blue fingers drumming against his command console in a pattern that his team recognized as deep thought. Finally, he straightened, decision crystallizing in his mind. Very well, he said slowly. We could not deny the data. But this raises a new question, one even more valuable than our original survey objectives. If we are truly to understand Hellsar's ecosystem, we must also understand why humans choose to hunt within it. He paused, meeting each team member's eyes in turn. I propose we study the humans from up close. This does not contradict our mission. Indeed, understanding why a sapient species would willingly subject themselves to the torture of a death world could prove invaluable to our species later. The reaction was immediate and visceral. Kriat's blue skin paled to an almost white shade, while Amat dropped his datapad with a clatter that echoed through the bridge. Sir, Lonat's voice cracked slightly. You're suggesting planetary injury. Actual atmospheric penetration of a Class SS death world. The humidity alone will try to corrode our hull, Kriat added, her scientific mind already cataloging the dangers. The spore count could clog our filters and the fungal networks. The Calamity Seeker was designed for this, Higgett interrupted. Our hull uses the new adaptive ceramite that actually grows stronger under acidic conditions. We don't need the filters if we keep cycling our internal atmosphere, and our cloaking systems, he gestured to the relevant console, will keep us invisible to both the local fauna and our human subjects. We are not some cobbled-together survey vessel. We are the pinnacle of Laterian engineering, specifically created to study worlds like this. The fear in the room was obvious, but Higgett could see his words having an effect. These were scientists, after all, driven by the same curiosity that had held them to join this mission in the first place. One by one, they returned to their stations, hands moving across controls with renewed purpose. Initiating planetary entry protocols, Emmett announced, his voice steadier now. Atmospheric analysis confirms all shields can handle the composition. Descent vector calculated to bring us down near the highest concentration of human signals. The Calamity Seeker shuddered slightly as it began its descent, the familiar vibration of atmospheric entry filling the bridge. Higgett watched the external monitors as the black of space gave way to the sickly yellow-green of Halsar's toxic atmosphere. The ship's cloaking systems engaged silently, bending light and radiation around their hull to render them invisible to all common detection methods. The descent was surprisingly smooth. The ship's designers had done their work well, and the adaptive systems were already adjusting to the planet's specific conditions. Altitude, 5,000 meters and descending, Lonat reported. Hull integrity at 100%. Cloak, stable. No detection from surface sources. The view through the main viewport was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Halsar's fungal forest stretched to the horizon, a riot of colors that shouldn't exist in nature. Violent purples, electric blues, and poisonous greens. Spore clouds drifted like fog between the massive mushroom caps, and in the distance, something large disturbed the canopy, sending up a shower of acid droplets that glittered in the dim sunlight. 1,000 meters, Lonat continued. 500. 200. Holding at 100 meters above the canopy level. Relief washed through the bridge like a physical thing. They had done it, successfully entered the atmosphere of a death world and positioned themselves for optimal observation. Higgett allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. Everything was going perfectly. Higgett's moment of satisfaction was precisely timed to maximize the universe's sense of irony. He had just opened his mouth to instruct the team to initiate human behavior study when Kriat's voice cut through the bridge atmosphere with a note of confusion that quickly shifted to concern.
Sir, we're experiencing altitude loss, minor but consistent, approximately 3 centimeters per second. Sensor malfunction,
Emmett suggested, already running diagnostics.
The atmospheric interference could be affecting our...
No, Higgett interrupted. Something catching his eye at the viewport, a black dot no bigger than his fingernail, marred the otherwise pristine transparent wall. He moved closer, a certain itch of curiosity overcoming caution. As he leaned in, the dot resolved into something that made his blood freeze in his veins. It was a worm, if worms could have wings. The creature was perhaps 5 centimeters long, its segmented body moving with peristaltic motions as it secreted something that was actually etching the viewport. Tiny wings, gossamer thin, but apparently functional, kept it attached to the smooth surface.
Alert all stations!
Higgett's fuse cracked across the bridge.
We have biological contact with the hull. Kriat, full biological scan immediately.
The team erupted into motion, but it was Lonat who delivered the news that turned concern into horror.
Sir, exterior sensors are detecting...
His voice failed him for a moment.
Thousands of contacts. No, tens of thousands. They're all over the hull.
How is that possible?
Emmett's fingers flew across his console.
The cloak should make us invisible to... They don't have eyes,
Kriat reported, her biological scanners working overtime.
No optical organs at all. They're not seeing us. They're just flying randomly, trying to find something to eat. We were simply in their path.
The weight, Higgett's mind, even in crisis, couldn't help but calculate. Each worm perhaps weighed a few grams, insignificant individually, but tens of thousands. The ship's hovering systems were precisely calibrated, designed to maintain position with minimal energy expenditure. They weren't prepared for an additional ton or more of randomly distributed weight.
Initiate emergency ascent,
Higgett ordered.
Get us back to orbit.
Negative response from navigation AI,
Emmett reported, panic creeping into his voice.
Safety protocols are preventing engine start. The weight differential is outside acceptable parameters. It won't risk an uncontrolled burn.
The viewport was darkening now. More worms landing every second, their bodies creating a writhing mass of biological matter intent on devouring their ship. Higgett stared at the display showing their altitude. 95 meters. 90. 85. The perfect ship, the pinnacle of Letarian engineering, being brought down by mindless worms. The irony wasn't lost on him, though he had no time to appreciate it.
Manual override, Higgett commanded. Bypass the safety protocols.
I can't. Emmett's hands shook as he worked. The AI has locked out manual control. It's protecting us from ourselves. It calculates a manual burn would result in catastrophic structural...
The impact wasn't the dramatic crash Higgett had anticipated. Instead, it was almost gentle, the calamity seekers settling into the fungal canopy like a tired swimmer finally allowing themselves to sink. The viewports went dark as they pushed through the mushroom caps, bioluminescent fluid splashing across the hull. The ship tilted slightly, groaned, and then came to rest with a final shudder that spoke of finality. For a moment, nobody moved. The bridge lights flickered, emergency power engaging as primary systems registered the damage. Then training kicked in, and the crew scattered to their emergency stations.
Hull breach in Section 7 and 12,
Kriat reported, her voice mechanical with shock.
Nothing major. The worms are actually sealing the hose with their secretions, but
we're not flying again,
Emmett finished.
Primary thrust assembly is clogged with biological matter. Secondary systems are offline. The power core is stable, but without thrust...
He didn't need to finish.
Communications,
Higgett asked, though he suspected the answer.
Primary array was sheared off during descent. Backup systems are functioning, but can't penetrate the giant mushrooms. We're cut off, sir.
Higgett sank into his command chair, the weight of his decision crushing down on him like the planet's oppressive atmosphere. His idea, his insistence, and now his crew, brilliant scientists who had trusted him, were stranded on a death world with no way home. The bitter taste of failure was like acid in his mouth, and for a moment he understood why humans had phrases about the road to hell being paved with good intentions.
I'm sorry,
he said quietly, the words inadequate but necessary.
This is my fault. I led us here, and now we survive.
Lonat interrupted, surprising everyone with the steel in his voice.
Blame can wait. Solutions cannot.
Higgett looked at his assistant, loyal Lonat, who had followed him through a dozen expeditions.
What do you suggest?
The humans, Lonat said simply.
They're surviving here. If anyone can help us, it's them.
Help us?
Kriat's voice was incredulous.
They're hunters, predators. What makes you think they'll help us rather than...
Then what?
Higgett stood, determination crystallizing in his mind.
Kill us? Study us? We're scientists. We knew the risk when we signed on. And right now, those hunters are our only hope of seeing home again.
He looked around the bridge, meeting each team member's eyes.
I'll go. Find the humans. Explain our situation. And beg for their assistance. The ship's emergency supply should keep you safe. You're not going alone.
Lonat moved to stand beside him.
2 have better chances than 1. And someone needs to document this for scientific posterity.
The rest of the crew exchanged glances, and Higgett could read their thoughts as clearly as if they were displayed on a monitor. They blamed him. How could they not? But more than that, they doubted. Doubted his judgment, doubted his ability to save them, doubted whether he would even return. The unspoken accusations lingered in the air like Halsar's toxic spores.
I'll need a volunteer to maintain the ship's systems while we're gone,
Higgett said, his voice carefully neutral.
Silence.
Finally, Emmett raised a hand. I'll keep the power core stable and the filters running, but sir, he paused, then seemed to decide something. Just don't promise anything you can't deliver. The preparation was mechanical, ritualistic. Higgett and Lonat moved to the equipment bay, where the emergency environmental suits waited. Another marvel of Laturian engineering that Higgett prayed would live up to its specifications. The suits were form-fitting, designed to maximize mobility while providing protection against everything from radiation to biological hazards. Higgett sealed himself in, checking and double-checking every connection. The heads-up display turned on, showing atmospheric readings that would have killed an unprotected Laturian in seconds. Field is normal, Lonat reported, his voice tinny through the suit's communication system. Estimated operational time, 72 hours before replacement needed. 72 hours to find the humans and convince them to help. Higgett almost laughed at the absurdity of it. They returned to the bridge for final preparations. Higgett stood before his crew, wanting to say something inspiring, something that would give them hope. I'll return with help, he said finally, the words falling flat in the recycled air. Nobody replied. Kriat busied herself with her console. Ahmet stared down at his hands. The others suddenly found urgent tasks that demanded their immediate attention. The blame was unspoken but unmistakable. He had led them to this death, and now he was abandoning them to beg for help from insane predators. The airlock cycled with a finality that made Higgett's heart skip a beat. Then they were outside, and the reality of Helsar hit them like a hard blow. Even through the suit's filters, the air smelled wrong, thick with rot and acid and life so aggressive it was indistinguishable from death. The fungal forest towered around them, each mushroom cap the size of a building, dripping substances that hissed and smoked where they hit the ground. Higgett and Lonat moved away from the ship, their steps careful on the spongy ground that seemed to move with hidden life. Their handguns, small projectile weapons designed more for last resort defense than actual combat, felt like toys in their hands. From deeper in the forest came sounds that belonged in nightmares, growls that resonated in frequencies that made their teeth ache, chittering calls that spoke of too many legs and too many teeth. And underneath it all, a constant rustle of movement that suggested they were already being watched. Which direction? Lonat asked, his scanner showing multiple human signals but no clear path through the fungal maze. Higgett consulted his own equipment, trying to plot a route that would avoid the worst of the biological signatures. Northeast. There's a human camp approximately 2 kilometers away. If we can just... A roar split the air, so close that Higgett felt it in his chest. Something massive moved in the canopy above, sending a rain of acid droplets that hissed against their suits. In the distance, something answered the call, and then another and another, until the forest echoed with the sounds of awakening predators. Higgett and Lonat shared a look through their visors, the same thought passing between them. 2 kilometers might as well be 2 light years. But they had no choice. Together they plunged deeper into the nightmare forest, the growls and chittering growing closer with each step. Their tiny handguns clutched in trembling hands as they searched desperately for the only beings insane enough to call this hell home, and possibly brave enough to help them escape it. The fungal forest seemed to close in around them with every step. Higgett's scanner showed they'd covered barely half a kilometer in what felt like hours.
their progress slowed by the need to avoid the writhing vines that tried to ensnare their legs and the pools of acid that bubbled up from the spongy ground. The constant chirping and growling from unseen predators had become a horrifying soundtrack to their journey. "Movement ahead," Lonat whispered, his voice tight with fear. "Large biological signature, 50 meters." Higgett raised his hand for silence, peering through the bioluminescent haze. What he saw made his blood turn to ice water in his veins. The creature that emerged from behind a massive mushroom stalk defied rational description. A spider-like monstrosity that stood 6 times their height, its body covered in hundreds of eyes that blinked independently, creating a nauseating ripple effect across its hairy carapace. Each of its 8 legs ended in serrated claws that left deep gouges in the ground, and its mandibles dripped with a substance that sizzled when it hit the forest floor. "Don't move," Higgett breathed. But the creature's multitude of eyes had already begun focusing in their direction, dozens at a time swiveling to lock onto their position. The spider thing took a step forward, the ground trembling under its weight. Lonat's hand shook as he raised his pathetic handgun. "Sir, I don't think—" "Shoot!" Higgett hissed. "Aim for the eyes!" Their weapons discharged with tiny pops that seemed laughable in the vast forest. The projectiles struck the creature's hide, and several eyes burst in sprays of luminescent fluid. The spider reared back, letting out a shriek that was more ultrasonic than audible, making their ears ache even through their suits. "Run!" Higgett grabbed Lonat's arm, pulling him toward a cluster of smaller mushrooms. They dove behind the largest cap, just as one of the spider's legs swept through where they had been standing, leaving a gouge deep enough to hide a body. The creature circled their hiding spot, its remaining eyes scanning methodically. Higgett could hear its breathing, a wet sound like bellows filled with acid. One leg probed near the mushroom, the claw coming within centimeters of Lonat's suit. They pressed themselves deeper into the shadows, hardly daring to breathe. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, something else caught the spider's attention, a flutter of wings in the canopy above. With another ultrasonic shriek, it scuttled away, moving with horrifying speed for something so large. They waited another full minute before emerging, both trembling from the adrenaline pump. "That thing," Lonat gasped, "could have killed us without even noticing." "I know," Higgett said simply. They pressed on, checking their scanners obsessively. The human signals were stronger now, perhaps only 300 meters away. Through gaps in the fungal canopy, Higgett could make out flashes of unnatural light, electric lanterns perhaps, or maybe fire. "There," Lonat pointed. In a clearing ahead, 3 figures moved around what looked like a temporary camp. Even from the distance, their confidence was evident. No fearful glances at the forest, no huddled defensive positions. They moved like they owned this nightmare world. How do we approach?" Lonat asked. "Everything I've read about humans suggests that they can be aggressive toward strangers." Higgett considered their options. "We need to appear non-threatening. Lower our weapons, keep our hands visible. Perhaps a verbal greeting from a distance. Or we could try their own greeting rituals," Lonat suggested. "I've studied their cultural databases. Some groups exchange gifts, others use specific hand gestures. We don't have gifts, and I doubt they'd see our hand gestures through our suits," Higgett countered. No, we simply announce ourselves and—" Their debate grew heated, voices rising as they argued the merits of various speech approach strategies. Higgett favored directness, while Lonat insisted on a more ritualistic method he had read about involving something called a handshake. "The database clearly stated—" Lonat's voice rose in frustration. A rustling in the underbrush silenced them both. From the thick vegetation emerged another nightmare. A centipede the length of a shuttlecraft, its segmented body undulating with muscular movement. But it wasn't just the legs that made Hyggett's mind reel. Running along its back were dozens of antenna-like appendages, each one moving independently, tasting the air. The alien centipede reared up, its front quarter rising like a tower of malice, its mandibles large enough to bisect a Laterian with ease, pressing together with a sound like breaking bones. "Back!" Hyggett shoved Lonat, both of them stumbling away from the monstrosity. "Keep moving back!" They fired their weapons as they retreated, the small projectiles pinging uselessly off the creature's armored segments. The centipede pursued, its 100 legs carrying it forward in a continuous wave of motion. The antennae on its back all pointed forward now, locked onto them like targeting arrays. Hyggett felt his back hit something solid, a tree trunk wider than their ship. They were trapped. The centipede reared higher, preparing to strike, its shadow falling over them like a promise of death. Then the forest exploded into motion. From the canopy above, something massive dropped onto the centipede, a snake that defied comprehension, its body as thick as the tree they were cowered against. The centipede's shriek of rage became one of panic as the snake's coils tightened, segments cracking like gunshots. Hyggett and Lonat could only stare in shock at the titanic battle unfolding mere meters away. The irony wasn't lost on them, saved from one predator by an even larger one. The snake's mouth opened impossibly wide, revealing fangs like swords, and began to swallow the still writhing centipede head first. "Sir," Lonat stammered, raising his gun with shaking hands. Hyggett did the same, and they both fired wildly. Eyes squeezed shut in pure terror, fingers pulling triggers until their weapons clicked empty. The sound of their shots was pathetic against the crushing and swallowing sounds of the feeding snake. Then, suddenly, silence. Hyggett cracked one eye open. The snake lay motionless on the ground, the centipede still half protruding from its mouth. A massive hole had appeared in the snake's head, far too large to have been made by their small weapons. "Did we—" Lonat began, opening his own eyes. "No way our guns did that," a new voice said, causing both Laterians to jump. A human stood at the edge of the clearing, a massive rifle still smoking in his hands. He was everything the species' reputation suggested. Tall, muscular, and radiating an aura of lethality. "That there's a 50 caliber hole. Your pea shooters might have tickled it some, though." Hyggett and Lonat stared at each other in panic, seeking confirmation that this ridiculous sequence of events had actually occurred. First the spider, then the centipede, then the snake, and now a human who had appeared from nowhere, like some kind of apex predator ghost. The human slung his rifle over his shoulder and walked closer, seemingly unconcerned by the massive corpses or the two terrified aliens. "So," he said, tilting his head with what might have been amusement, "who are the two pussies wearing spacesuits?" The casual vulgarity broke through their shock. Hyggett immediately dropped to his knees, pulling Lonat down with him. "Please," he gasped, bowing his head in what he hoped was a gesture of submission that transcended species. "We need help. Our ship crashed. Our crew is stranded. We'll do anything." Lonat, recovering from his shock, joined in the display, pressing his forehead to the spongy ground. "We beg of your mercy, great hunter. We are but humble scientists who—" Whoa, easy there," the human interrupted, and Hyggett could hear the amusement in his voice. "Get up, both of you. No need for all the dramatic shit." He reached down and helped them to their feet with surprising gentleness. "Look, we're not going to leave you out here to die. That wouldn't be very human of us, would it?" Two more humans emerged from the forest, weapons at the ready but relaxed. They moved with the same confidence, treating the snake corpse like it was nothing more than fallen furniture to step around. "Found these two. About to be snake food, the first human called to his companions. Says their ship crashed.
Latarians by the look of 'em, one of the newcomers observed. Long way from home, aren't you?
Please,
Higgett said, trying to regain some dignity.
I am lead scientist Higgett, and this is my assistant, Lonat. We were conducting a survey when... save the formal stuff for later,
the first human said, extending a hand.
I'm Roger. The ugly one there is Michael, and the quiet one's Jack. Come on, let's get you back to camp before something else decides to take a bite.
The walk to the human camp was surreal. The three hunters moved through the deadly forest like it was a park, occasionally gesturing at various hazards with the same casual manner one might point out interesting architecture. Their camp, when they reached it, was somewhat simple. Weapons of large size leaned against supply crates, the remains of some creature roasted over a contained fire, and electronics that looked both highly advanced and roughly used scattered about.
Sit.
Roger gestured to some crates arranged like furniture.
So you said your ship crashed. How many in your crew?
5 others, Higgett replied, gratefully sinking onto a crate.
They're with the ship about 2 kilometers southeast. The Calamity Seeker was brought down by some kind of flying worms.
Acid borers, Michael interrupted, nodding knowingly. Yeah, they'll do that. Stupid things eat anything. We'll help you get your people out in the morning. Too dangerous to move a large group at night. Higgett felt a wave of relief, so strong it made him dizzy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I must ask, though, why are you here? What possible reason could humans have for being on this death world?
Roger laughed, a booming sound that seemed to challenge the forest to do something about it.
You ever try hunting on Earth these days? Everything's either protected, tagged, or so used to humans it barely runs anymore. I mean, what's the challenge in that?
Plus, Michael added, cleaning his rifle with practiced motions, nothing on Earth needs a 50 cal to bring down. Out here, hell, sometimes 50 cal feels like underkill. Jack, who had been quiet until now, grinned.
And there's no regulations, no permits, no seasons, no bag limits. We can blow up whatever we want. Don't forget the best part, Roger said with a wink. Gets me away from the real apex predator. My wife. She thinks I'm at a corporate retreat.
The others laughed, and even Higgett found himself relaxing slightly.
But your protective suits, we saw footage of humans without them.
Oh, those? Michael pulled up his sleeve, revealing skin marked with old acid scars. Yeah, the acid stings like hell, but our skin's tougher than most. We can take it for a while. Usually only wear the full suits during heavy rain or if we're going to a really nasty area.
One more thing,
Roger said, his expression turning businesslike.
We make good money selling specimens to alien researchers. No offense, but weak species like yours and others pay top credit for things we bag here. Organs, tissue samples, live specimens sometimes. It's a lucrative side business.
No offense taken, Higgett assured him, though privately he wondered at a species that considered hunting nightmares a profitable hobby. They talked through the night, the humans sharing stories that alternated between terrifying and hilarious. They seemed to find genuine joy in their insane pursuits, treating near-death experiences like fond memories. When dawn finally broke through the canopy, casting the forest in shades of sickly yellow, the humans were true to their word.
All right,
Roger announced, checking his weapons.
Let's go get your people.
The journey back seemed almost anticlimactic, with the humans leading. Creatures that had terrorized Higgett and Lonat simply avoided the group, recognizing apex predators when they saw them. In less than an hour, they reached the crash site. Or rather, where the crash site should have been. Michael said, lowering his rifle.
Where's your ship?
Where the Calamity Seeker had crashed, there was now only a massive creature, easily the size of a building, curled up and sleepy.
Its body was covered in thick scales that shifted color with each breath, and its stomach was distended in a way that suggested a very recent, very large meal. You gotta be kidding me, Jack muttered. That thing eat your ship? Higgett could only stare in horror. Somewhere in that creature's stomach were his crew, his ship, everything. Roger sighed and checked his ammunition. Well, boys, looks like we're doing an emergency extraction. Mike, you got your heavy ordnance? Always, said, producing explosives from his pack with disturbing enthusiasm. Yeah, your people better be grateful, Roger said to Higgett. This is gonna be messy. 3 months later, Higgett stood in his new office at the Laterian Scientific Institute, gazing out at the peaceful skyline of his homeworld. The official report of the Helsar incident sat on his desk, heavily edited to remove the more embarrassing details. His crew had survived, pulled from the belly of the beast by humans who treated the whole thing like a mildly challenging Tuesday. They'd even managed to save most of the ship's data cores, along with enough organs from the creature to fund their department for the next decade. None of his old crew would speak to him except Lonat, who had developed what he called a healthy respect for human insanity. The others had transferred to other departments, other ships, anywhere that would take them far from Higgett and his dangerous ideas. But as he read the latest message on his personal communicator, Roger sending pictures from their latest hunt, featuring a creature that looked like a cross between a shark and a volcano, Higgett found himself smiling. He had made friends among the humans, even if their ideas of entertainment remained utterly incomprehensible. Next time you want to study dangerous wildlife, Roger had written, just ask us first. We probably already killed it, and we definitely have video. Higgett filed the message away and returned to his work. He had a presentation to prepare on why the Galactic Council should absolutely, under no circumstances, attempt to colonize planets where humans were already hunting. Some species, he had learned, were best appreciated from a very safe distance.